It's time for Wretched Radio with Todd Friel.
Oh, the shame. The shame. This is Wretched Radio. Shame on me. Took a lovely drive through northern Georgia. Dawsonville, I believe, was the name of the town, or at least sort of near there. Look, I'm not Rand McNally. I'm driving around. We get to Falls.
It's apoplectic.
That's what I just sounded like. Apicalola Falls. Not to be confused with Toccoa Falls. It's a state park. Went to take a little stroll. Lovely a part of the world. It was post-peak. The leaves, they were nice, but you could tell we kind of missed it by a week or two. Nevertheless, went walking through a park area. There was a lovely resort hotel. Stopped to ask for some directions. The young lady at the desk, very nice, very polite, informed us, if you want to take the fitness trail, no was my immediate response. If you want to take the fitness trail, just turn to the left and start walking down the stairs. That was very nice, but I noticed sitting in front of her while she was basically killing time between guests was a textbook. Evangelistic tip for you, if you ever see somebody, a student, reading a textbook in public, ask what it is. 9 times out of 10, it will lead to an evangelistic encounter. George Barna, we commissioned a study. It is 9 times out of 10. And sure enough, she was reading a textbook on ethics. Well, let's talk about ethics. Specifically, medical ethics, scientific ethics. How do we deal with these new inventions, this new technology? Our ability to do things with the human body that we could never even have dreamt of 50 years ago, frankly. And so I spent some time chatting with her about this subject. Of course, what do you know? Somebody comes up behind, which means time for me to go. And I didn't have a copy of What Time Is Purple. Shame on me. I only got halfway through the conversation. We moved from ethics to theism. But just when I wanted to get to the subject about the God that is revealed in the Bible, I had to scoot. Shame on me. I did not have a copy of What Time Is Purple, which is perfect for university students. It dismantles the atheistic worldview. It leads them to theism, but then specifically to the Christian God revealed in the Bible. Don't be like me. And I mean that in so many ways. Don't be like me. Make sure you've got copies of What Time Is Purple. Seriously, shame on me. I felt terrible. I got the young lady thinking, and then I didn't have the gospel to leave with her. You can get your copies at wretched.org/purple. We'll give you up to 50 copies. You won't fit them all in your glove box unless you drive a really, really big car. But bring them with you wherever you go, because you can just give away the gospel to somebody. I only made it halfway through the conversation. We moved from ethics to theism. It's very easy to do. Okay, it's not as easy as it used to be. This young lady's reading a book on ethics. I said, well, what ethical conundrum are you studying in this particular chapter? And she said, and this was a good one, organ donation. Involuntary organ donation. A subject, interestingly, we were talking about last week here on Wretched Radio. In China, North Korea, Eastern Europe, we've seen these horror stories. People so poor that they're willing to sell their organs. Eastern Europe, this is so common that people will leave their very poor countries, Albania, Georgia, Romania, places where the Tomorrow Clubs are, where they bring the gospel because so many kids are living in villages without parents because they leave the country to go sell their organs. And then they come back sometimes, not always. They come back and they're sick. They've had an organ removed. And all they're given as they leave are stitches, which need to be taken out by somebody in the village. Antibiotics, forget about it. Any follow-up care, They get a lot of money in their culture. It's a lot of money. And then they're left sickly the rest of their days. It's a tragic situation. I can say that. You can say that. The question that I had for the young lady at the hotel desk was, how can you say that? Well, it's terrible that happens. That word terrible. How can you use that word terrible? How are you making your way through your ethics book? What is the arbiter of what is ethical and what is not? And she goes, well, that's kind of the problem. I'm noticing we're getting into a lot of debates. And I went, duh! I can't even tell you how much. I hope this isn't a sinful, loaded word. It incenses me. These young people, this young lady grew up in a Christian home. She told me now she's kind of like half Christian, which, she's I sort of, but not really, because I've been going through all of these classes. Typical. Mom and Dad, you send your kids to wherever you deem best. But just know there is an intentional effort to unwind your Christian worldview. Your kids, they get bombarded by it in virtually every field of study. This young lady studying ethics used to sort of go to church, believe in God. Now I'm not so sure anymore. I said, so how do you determine your ethical standards? How is it bad? Why is it bad for poor people to have to sell their organs and then they're left? Their life is typically shortened. Why is that bad? Well, you see, I said, well, you really can't. All you can say is that's not your preference. It sounds to me like you've really got a mostly utilitarian worldview. That if it works out, if it makes sense, then it's a good thing. It's pragmatism is what you've got going on. If it works, swell. If the end is good, the means whatever. I said, does that really work for you? Well, it's just different for every culture and society. I said, as long as you've brought up different cultures and society, Nazi Germany. Yes, I dropped the Nazi card. Nazi Germany. The society, not everybody certainly, but the culture deemed it correct to exterminate particular groups of people. Jewish people, black people, gay people. Was that wrong? I hope you are not driving. If you are, put your hands on the wheel, real firm, 10 and 2. She said, well, I used to think it was wrong. Oh, really? You used to you used to think it was wrong. Yeah, but then the professor talked about all of the good things that came out of it medically. I mean, all of these experiments, she's referring to the Mengele-like experiments where people were operated on alive. But because there were some good outcomes, do you hear the pragmatism? Do you hear the utilitarian? It worked, so therefore it's okay. We might not have known these things. And I said, so the ends justifies the means. Yeah, I get. And this young lady typified, now I guess it would be personified, the unwinding that happens. The goal, it seems to me, of university is to unwind, to put these kids into these moral conundrums, confronted with their logic, their secular humanistic reasoning, and leave their feet dangling firmly in midair. So they leave 4 years later not thinking anything is morally wrong, not thinking anything is awful or terrible. It's just preference. I don't know how to think through these issues. And I think that's an intentional effort at the university. And I said, okay, so you're not sure if Nazi Germany was objectively horrible. Okay, let me just try this one. I had to go fishing a little more. This used to be a little easier, but nevertheless, you can get there. I said, raping little girls. Can you tell me that is always wrong? Oh, absolutely. Now, you're sure about this? There's we couldn't come up with a good medical experiment from this that justified it. It's no matter what comes out of it, it's always wrong. Correct? Yes. She had to say that. I said, congratulations. You just logicked your way to God. Didn't tell her who the God was, but that's what just happened. If you're driving down a road and there are no signs determining the speed limit and somebody yells to you, slow down, there's no signs on the road, you can just yell back, that's only your preference.
Yeah, that's what I'd yell back.
But even if you're already gone. But even if there's a speed, because you're going so fast, even if there's a speed, now if there's a posted sign Now when somebody else slowed down, if you're exceeding that limit, which was determined by an authority, it's no longer preference. Now you're breaking the law. Reasoning backwards, when we make the statement that there is an objective morality, molesting little girls, there must be an objective lawgiver. You've reasoned them back to God. And the young lady looked at me and goes, I guess so. And then the guy comes behind me and I have to leave and I don't have a What Time is Purple.
Shame on you.
Shame on me. Don't be like Todd. Get your copies of What Time is Purple at wretched.org/purple. When we return, however, we will now take it the next step. As we enter into our brave new world, how do we reason people from nothing to God to Jesus Christ? Next on Wretched Radio.
Behold a world without Wretched. Please become a gospel partner